Hi, I'm Gabriela Luque.
And I'm Miroslava.
And today we're going to be showing you guys 3 weathering and erosion projects to do at home.
The first project we're going to do is the thunderstorm project. The ingredients we're going to need are red and blue food coloring,
an ice cream tray, but we're going to DIY it,
a big plastic clear container,
and some water.
The first step is to put blue food coloring into the ice tray.
Take your ice tray and put it inside the freezer and let it freeze for about an hour. After your water is all frozen, you can break it up so it looks like ice cubes. Next, you're going to take your ice cubes
and place them into one side of the container.
First, add the blue ice cubes.
Next, add the red food coloring on the opposite side.
The blue ice cubes represent cold air.
And the red represents hot air rising. This happens because of convection.
Convection can lead to thunderstorms.
A daily example of this is when you're showering and the steam rises. The second experiment that I'm going to be doing is called the cloud in a jar. It is called such because we are going to literally be creating a cloud inside of this here jar. So here's what you'll need. Obviously, the jar, hairspray, an upside down lid with ice, and very hot water. The first step is to add the hot water into the jar. Next, you're going to get your hairspray and add some in there. After, you quickly put the lid of ice on top of the jar. So, this is how the water is going to form into a cloud. So the first thing that happens here is that the water evaporates. It means that water is so heated up that it turns into little vapor or little droplets. We call that water vapor. Now, the water vapor is going to begin to rise, reaching the top. Since the lid is on top of the jar, there's going to be cold air radiating off of it. So as the water vapor reaches the cold air, it condenses. Now, water vapor condenses when it's so cold that there's absolutely no heat to keep the water vapor a liquid. That means that all the water vapor, the little droplets, let's say, kind of unite and make a cloud. Now, this condensation experiment would work differently if you were doing it in a water bottle. That's because if you were doing it in a water bottle, the condensation would work differently, because instead of forming a cloud, it would make little water droplets around the edges. But since we added hairspray this time, it forms a cloud. So soon enough, the cloud will start forming. You can tell because if I move my hand behind it, you can barely see any detail of my fingers. Then I'm going to take the lid off of the jar, and the cloud will escape. That's the cloud right now, escaping.
Now it's time for our third experiment. It's called the runoff experiment. The ingredients are
Sand, water,
ice cubes, a
and
tray.
What you're going to want to do is prop the baking sheet. I'm going to be using a speaker.
Okay. After we've got all the sand laid out, you're gonna make a little, kind of like a river, zigzag, like that.
This will represent a river when you add water. Next, you're going to take your ice cubes and add some to the side of the sand. This is representing water breaking down rocks and moving sand along the river bed.
Because as you can see, when we poured the water in, the water carried a little bit of the sand down with it.
Now, all of the sand that you're going to be left with over here is going to be a starting of like a new form of land.
Okay, so now it's time for our third project, and we're gonna do a 3D experiment.
For our 3D experiment, we're going to be doing a model representation of the different layers of soil in the ground.
The ingredients we're gonna use are different colors of paper, which will represent the colors of soil and different types of soil. Then a black marker and scissors.
Next, we're going to also need a glue, tape, and a box, a rectangular box, or really just any box that is of this size.
So basically, we're gonna cut these papers into the size of here, and we're gonna do layers representing different layers of rock and soil. And that's about it. And then we'll put like a landscape right on top.
Make sure to cut enough paper to fit around the whole box and paste it like so.
Your box looks like this so far. Then you're going to do a little green square on the top of the box so we can make a landscape. So now we're done with the landscape. It turned out very whimsical, you could say, and we did a little bit of grass, but we're not done. Anyway, the next step will be to get little white cards, and we're gonna write down the label of what the layer is called.
Okay, so the first layer is called the surface layer. It's really just the first layer of soil you see. Like, for example, when you're planting a plant or digging a hole, it's what you see. So it really just is the soil that goes through the most.
So the second layer you will see is the topsoil layer. The topsoil layer is a layer that has the most action and the most high concentration. So even though the surface layer is the one that you would see when you dig a hole, for example, if you're gonna plant a flower, sure, when you dig the hole, you will see the surface layer, but the roots and the seed will come from the topsoil. Therefore, the topsoil is the one that has the most concentration and has the most action going around.
Okay, so the third layer is the subsoil. There's really not much to it. It's just known as a layer underneath the topsoil.
Now the fourth layer you'll see is the parent material layer. The name is such because it is basically a parent. That is where all the soil horizons from. So as each layer has its own purpose, it's because it has inherited a great deal of structure from the parent material.
Moving on to the break, it's literally just like a divider between these two layers. Now finally we have the bedrock. The bedrock is a huge rock that supports all the other soil layers. You can think of it like the first floor of a building.
Thank you for embarking on this journey with us on making this super fun and easy project.
I hope you enjoyed our edits and have a wonderful day. Thank you, Miss Ervin.